It's said that a friend of Socrates told him that the oracle at Delphi had said that Socrates was the wisest of men. And Socrates characteristically went about asking others questions, trying to prove that they knew things that he did not, to prove the oracle wrong. And he eventually concluded that, well, if he was the wisest of men, what made it so was that he knew that he knew not, that he simply was willing to humbly admit his ignorance, that he knew nothing, which was really the state of all the people. But his only step further along was that he was willing to admit it. This rare quality of humility seems to be a prerequisite for us to be noticed by the true God. The God is there, not this oracle of Delphi, but I want to be known by the God who is there. And I look in chapter 66 of Isaiah, and you see these two groups of people juxtaposed against each other. One is these people that outwardly, they apparently were conducting these sacrifices, that considered themselves right before God, but inwardly they had nothing to do with him. They outwardly maybe looked humble, maybe looked contrite, acted like they knew the word of the Lord. Inwardly, no humility, no contrite heart, brokenness, no sensitivity to trembling at God's word. And they were excluding this other group that was humble, broken in spirit, and wanting, trembling at, desiring to hear the word of the Lord. So here, picking up in Isaiah 66, it's the last chapter of the book, where Isaiah is for prophesying that God was going to judge Judah, Jerusalem, and all the nations, wiping away what they knew and bringing judgment, but then restoring. He gives hope, and even in this chapter talks of the new Jerusalem that would come by this child that would be born, the Messiah to come, and how all the nations would be brought in. But here in 66, verse 2, second part of verse 2, 2b, says, "But to this one I will look." This is God speaking. "To this one I will look, to him who is humble and contrite of spirit, and who trembles at my word." Think of humble as poor, in need, want. Contrite, I think maimed, broken, trembles at my word. And I'm going to read on a little bit here because I want you to see the picture of those first who weren't, to know better what it is. We say we want to be humble and contrite in spirit. We need to tremble at his word. Well, here's what it looks like for those who were not. "But he who kills an ox is like one who slays a man." What imagery for a people that were supposed to be conducting these sacrifices. That ox that you're sacrificing, I see that as if you slayed a man, someone that bears my image, and you're going to present that to me because of how you're treating these other people. Your heart is not right. "He who sacrifices a lamb is like one who breaks a dog's neck." One of the ways that they would offer their sacrifice, the breaking of the neck of the animal. They're breaking a dog's neck. A dog back then wasn't a family pet. It was considered a dirty, unclean animal. Remember, the dog was the one that licked the sores of Lazarus, dirty, unclean. Or the dogs were the ones that ate the remains of Jezebel, part of the judgment there. That's their sacrifice in reality, even though it doesn't appear that way. That's how God sees it. He who offers a grain offering is like one who offers swine's blood. And we know that swine, pigs were unclean animals. He who burns incense is like one who blesses an idol, as they have chosen their own ways. Their soul delights in their abominations. Where is the humble spirit, the contrite, broken spirit? They're delighting in their own way, these abominations. So I will choose their punishments and will bring on them what they dread, because I called, but no one answered. I spoke, but they did not listen. Where's the trembling at his word? God has spoken. God is speaking through Isaiah. They are not responsive. And they did evil in my sight and chose that which I did not delight. They delighted in abominations. God delighted in a contrite heart, in a humble spirit, trembling at his word. Hear the word of the Lord, you who tremble at his word. So now this other group, those who do tremble at his word. Your brothers who hate you, who exclude you for my name's sake, have said, let the Lord be glorified, that we may see your joy, but they will be put to shame. A voice of uproar from the city, a voice from the temple, the voice of the Lord who is rendering recompense to his enemies. And then he goes on to talk about the child to be born and the nations brought in. Let me give you two pictures from the New Testament. If we want to be, since all men, like Socrates, all men were ignorant, but Socrates in that story was the one willing to admit his ignorance, and so that made him the wisest of men. All of us are in deep need before God, but to those who recognize and admit the brokenness of their need, and so are contrite and humble in spirit, tremble at his word, take it as something sacred. These are the ones that it says, to this one I will look, noticed by the God who is there and who responds and will vindicate them in the end.